Nevada is a land built on top of a graveyard of ambitions. Scattered across its cracked earth are more than 600 ghost towns, monuments to a time when men traded their sanity and their lives for a handful of rock. In Part 1, we witnessed the explosive rise and violent collapse of the Silver State's earliest settlements. But the desert didn't just swallow mining camps. It buried multi-million-dollar empires, corporate conspiracies, and towns that were systematically erased by nature itself. Welcome back to American Old West Tales to dive deeper, darker look into the Old West. Today we cross the threshold of 9 more haunting Nevada ghost towns. These are the forgotten battlegrounds of human greed, tragic miscalculations, and architectural ghosts. Before we unlock these gates, take a moment to subscribe and support the channel. Let us begin. Goldfield, the crumpled empire. We begin with a giant that fell harder than any other. In 1904, Goldfield was not a mere camp. It was the undisputed economic heart of Nevada. It housed 20,000 residents, operated its own stock exchange, and boasted a grand hotel built at an astronomical cost. The ground here was so rich with gold that miners routinely smuggled high-grade ore out in their boots and clothing, an illicit underground economy known as high grading that drained millions from tycoon pockets. But empires built on pure greed rarely endure. Goldfield's undoing was catastrophic. A brutal, bloody labor war fractured its workforce. Then, in 1913, a freak flash flood tore through the canyon. The absolute finality came 10 years later, when a massive, roaring wall of fire consumed the wooden grid of the city. Today, the Grand Brick Hotel stands like a monolith in a field of ash. Berlin, the mountain of monsters. Within the isolated canyons of the Shoshone Range lies Berlin. Established in 1897, it was a strict company town dedicated to extracting silver. While most ghost towns were torn apart by scavengers or reduced to splinters by weather, Berlin was abandoned so abruptly that it remains perfectly preserved by the state. A snapshot of 19th century life frozen mid-breath. Yet, Berlin guards a bizarre geological irony. Deep within the very rock tunnels where miners swung their picks, scientists later uncovered the largest concentration of ichthyosaur fossils on Earth. These were 50-foot prehistoric apex predators that ruled the oceans 200 million years ago. Every single day, the miners of Berlin were sweating, bleeding, and dying directly on top of the bones of ancient monsters. Austin, the runaway silver strike. Most settlements are the result of meticulous surveying. Austin was born from sheer panic. In 1862, a runaway horse belonging to a Pony Express rider kicked over a loose rock in the Reese River Valley. Beneath that displaced stone lay one of the richest silver veins in the territory. Within months, a chaotic city of 10,000 people materialized out of the dust. Austin became a fascinating study in cultural friction. It featured a notorious, lawless red light district operating directly alongside some of the most magnificent, high Gothic brick churches ever built in the American wilderness. But Austin's ore was complex, and processing it proved prohibitively expensive. When the Transcontinental Railroad bypassed the canyon, the town's pulse stopped. Today, fewer than 200 people live among the massive brick ruins that still hang precariously over the cliffs. Belmont, the haunted county seat. Belmont's architectural remnants are among the most spectacular and eerie in the American West. In the late 1860s, it was chosen as the seat of Nye County. To project an image of permanent civilized power, the town erected a magnificent 2-story brick courthouse. It was a statement to the world that Belmont was here to stay. It was a lie. When the silver dried up, the courts packed up and moved to Tonopah, leaving the majestic building to rot. But empty buildings rarely stay unoccupied. In the 1970s, the infamous Charles Manson cult took refuge in the surrounding hills, leaving chilling, cryptic graffiti scratched into the walls of Belmont's dying structures. Today, the wind through the broken windows is the only voice left in a town that once ruled the county. Rhyolite, the concrete mirage. Rhyolite stands as the ultimate warning against Western speculation. Founded in 1904 on the blistering edge of Death Valley, this town transformed from a sea of canvas tents into a sprawling metropolis in less than 36 months. It had electric grids, water mains, operational newspapers, and a striking 3-story concrete bank. But it was a metropolis built entirely on a mirage. The financial panic of 1907 choked out Eastern investment capital, and the mines were found to be vastly overhyped. By 1911, the mills stopped turning. By 1916, the power was severed permanently. Rhyolite lived, conquered, and died in a span of just 12 years. Today, its hollow concrete archways resemble Roman ruins melting away under the relentless desert sun. Unionville, the winter of discontent. Tucked away in a surprisingly verdant canyon in northern Nevada, lies Unionville. In 1861, it was a roaring silver camp that attracted thousands of desperate prospectors, including a young penniless journalist named Samuel Clemens, who would later adopt the pen name Mark Twain. Twain spent a brutal, desperate winter here, shivering in a primitive canvas tent and digging blindly into the frozen mountainside, only to realize that mining was nothing more than backbreaking, unprofitable misery. He abandoned the camp in utter disgust. Shortly after his departure, the silver veins pinched out, and Unionville withered. Today, the ruins of Twain's cabin still stand, a silent, ironic monument to a literary icon's brief, failed attempt to get rich quick. Pioneer, erased in an hour. Just north of Death Valley stood Pioneer, a gold camp established in 1908. It was a fast, volatile settlement of 2,500 people, packed with hotels, theaters, and crowded saloons. Yet Pioneer holds a tragic record for just how swiftly an entire community can be wiped off the map by a single act of carelessness. In May of 1909, a resident left a heavy flat iron heating unattended on a stove inside a wooden building. The iron overheated, igniting the floorboards. Within minutes, a ferocious desert wind caught the flames, turning the town into a literal furnace. In less than an hour, Pioneer was entirely leveled. Though the citizens attempted to rebuild, the gold reserves dried up before the wood arrived. Today, nothing remains but ash and melted glass hidden in the brush. Metropolis, the paradise that died of thirst. Metropolis is perhaps the most profound tragedy in the state's history, because it was not built on the volatile promise of gold, but on the noble dream of agriculture. In 1910, New York industrialists envisioned a utopian farming colony in Elko County for 7,500 people. They laid out a modern grid and built a state-of-the-art brick schoolhouse. Then, nature retaliated. First came an unprecedented, multi-year drought. Desperate for food, tens of thousands of wild jackrabbits descended from the hills, completely devouring the crops. An outbreak of typhoid followed. Then came a biblical plague of Mormon crickets. The final blow was a catastrophic lawsuit from a downstream town that legally stripped Metropolis of its water rights. The town literally died of thirst. Today, only the monumental archway of the school stands in the wasteland, a headstone for human ambition. Candelaria, the toxic kingdom. We close our journey in Candelaria, located in the bleak, wind-scoured hills of Mineral County. Discovered by Spanish prospectors in 1864, Candelaria evolved into one of the most productive silver capitals in the region, but it was also one of the most toxic environments in North America. The mountains possessed no water. Every drop had to be hauled in by mule teams and sold by the gallon, making water more expensive than whiskey. Because of this extreme scarcity, the silver mills were forced to operate dry, pumping a continuous, suffocating cloud of silica dust into the atmosphere. Miners died by the hundreds from acute lung disease, their chests filled with microscopic shards of rock. When the silver market collapsed, the survivors fled the toxic air instantly. Today, Candelaria's stone walls are slowly dissolving back into the white desert dust. 600 ghost towns, 600 monuments to dreams that withered under the harsh Nevada sun. These ruins remind us that the desert always wins in the end. Which of these forgotten places carries the heaviest weight? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Ensure you are subscribed so you do not miss our next journey into the forgotten chapters of history. Until next time, keep exploring.